Lauren, thank you for taking the time. This is awesome.
Hey, you're welcome.
We tried to get this set up, I think, earlier this year, but something.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of travel to Florida for work this summer, so the summer was just sort of like,
Is that for
really
CrossFit?
It came out of the CrossFit community. It's called the Florida Grid League. So it was, it's really cool, actually. Not a lot of people know about it. It used to be sort of a national, fitness league. And then right now it's just in the state of Florida, but the athletes are from all over the place.
Is it similar structure to CrossFit, like similar workouts and stuff, or no?
No, so it's more like an actual team where you have a team, the workouts, and then each person, then the coach and the team members figure out how they want to execute that. So you got to complete the work. Everything is a race. So it sort of has like some relay styles. Yeah. It has like specialist things, tons of gymnastics.
So it's like a real team sport.
Yeah. So you have your like body weight specialists, your strength specialists, we call them like utility player specialists who sort of can do everything. So the workouts, so what the matches are. There's like 11 to 13 in a match. And then you also know who you're playing, so you know what team you're going up against. So then you can like see their film cool. And their thing, and then you just are trying to put together to execute the best way to accomplish, each race. Basically.
Have you heard of High Rocks by chance?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I had never heard of that until
it's getting huge.
2 weeks ago, a bunch of my buddies in Austin they went up to Dallas to do it, and I had never heard of it. It sounds like it's similar. It's like I guess there's partners there. It's not a full team.
Yeah, and you can do it individual.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can, because
I have no idea. It just seemed interesting to me because it was like, it's just cool how you can make a team sport out of lifting, something that's like been individual for however long. There's jiu-jitsu teams now too, which is cool. Like they'll have like team tournaments.
Yeah, very cool.
Any way you can make like a team out of a thing. I guess in college golf is a team sport, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so. Firstly, I want to thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
I also want to thank you for, this is a long time. We were just looking at videos. Like, I think I first came to you when I was a junior in high school.
You were driving yourself.
Yeah, I don't even remember when, though.
You were probably, I think you were a junior.
Yeah, it was after my, it was because it was after my labrum surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Which was 2016. And I remember vividly, I have to start with this story because I was going it's good. It's good. I was going to a conventional per se, like a traditional PT at the hospital or the clinic that I got the surgery done. And it was atrocious. Mm-hmm. I had like no gains in like, I don't know how long I was going there, maybe 2-3 months. And our mutual friend, John Forty.
Yeah. And how many times a week were you going in as well?
Yeah. Well, and like I was actually talking to somebody about this recently. It's one of those things where you actually might know. Do you know Brad Ernest? Is that name familiar? Okay. You're Justin King, right? Or no, Jerry King.
Mm-hmm. We're King.
So we're all connected basically. Gotcha. But I would walk in there and then the PT would spend like 10 minutes with me, and then some like 12-year-old PT assistant would basically help me, and then I'd be doing workouts right next to like an 85-year-old lady that's got a completely different injury, exercise, stuff like that. But the point is, I came to you at the request or at the recommendation of John Forty, and I remember going home being like, well, first off, my family thought they were like, what the hell just happened? Because I got scraped, cupped, and and needed. They thought I got the shit beat out of me.
I was like, you're not of legal guardian age, and but you've been signed off to come in here, but they're not going to know what has happened to you.
Well, it's so counterintuitive. Maybe nowadays it's a little bit more mainstream, but like I came in here, I had no idea what to expect. And I literally think in that one session, I had more progress than in like the month and a half after my surgery I had at the traditional PT. And perhaps to your or maybe you'll be happy to hear this, I have never gone back to a traditional PT.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Thank you. You literally changed my the paradigm I look at like all of medicine through. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for saying that, because that is how I have, why I do what I do, and how I've seen it, which I'm sure we're gonna get into it even from like when I was young with my own medical conditions, of seeing this big hole that there is in healthcare, sometimes even in different types of fitness, especially with young athletes where we're like, they're fine, they're gonna heal, just do your exercises. And it's really like, no, like you need, like, especially with sports and healthy individuals, like it's a different world out there that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm glad that you saw that, because that's how, my company's RPR, that's how RPR sort of came to be, is that we truly, we're not here just to make your pain go away. As I always say, is like, I don't care about your pain. Like I do, but like what I care about is you as a person, how you move, meeting the goals that you have. For you, it was making specific things, as you just said. We look at some videos. It was specific for you as a baseball player, of how we put together programs and had you heal from a shoulder surgery. Whereas, if you are a 75-year-old person who fell and tripped in their house and tore their labrum, like that recovery and that type of physical therapy and holistic around you, even what the surgeons are doing and everything, it should look different. There's nothing wrong with that. So there should be special groups for special populations and people to meet their goals. Yeah,
and that was one of the, looking back at it, the optic of me. I vividly remember this. I was on a table like that, and next to me was like an elderly woman, and she was recovering from a similar injury. And like looking back, I'm like, I was trying to doing
like the exact same things too.
Yeah, and I'm like trying to throw a baseball as hard as I possibly can, and she's just trying to like be able to move her arm. I'm like, this is completely messed up. I do want to get into your story, but I guess let's start there, because I guess it probably filters into why you chose to do physical therapy the way that you do. I also want to say that documentary, I'm going to plug it in the show notes, because it is a really good, like only 8 to 10 minutes, but it was really cool, really well done.
It was fun.
Yeah. Your story, obviously you have a unique health history that probably propelled you down this journey. Do you want to get in?
I'll try not to completely bore you with the old details, but basically I have been an active person my whole life. When I was a kid, I just was obsessed with like human performance, like even as like a 5-year-old. Like I always wanted to be in sports. I would watch any sports. I would rehearse and like try to like be the athletes, watching them on TV. Started in gymnastics, but did, handful of everything, like swam in the summer, played soccer and all of that stuff. My goal was really that I wanted to be a collegiate cheerleader. So, had the gymnastics background for the tumbling and all that stuff. And I was still taking tumbling to prepare for cheerleading tryouts. And it was the summer before freshman year of high school. So I was 14 and went to, my tumbling session, tumbling just like everyone else who's been there, tumbling since I could physically be able to do it. Ended this really long tumbling pass and fell to the ground, and with like horrible wrist and elbow pain. Like I thought it was like someone had stabbed me. And I told my coach, I was like, I don't know what's wrong, but something's like seriously, seriously bad. And ended up, I'm from a small town, so it took a long time to meet with specialists and get diagnoses. And I had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis that, from my standpoint, came on within a matter of seconds. Like 5 minutes before I fell to the ground, I had been doing another tumbling pass. So that's sort of like my story as to like holistically sort of where I got. But prior to all that, I was already thinking of being a physical therapist, or at least knew sports medicine would be the route. Like I love seeing the guys run on the field, the athletic trainers and attend to injuries. And I always wanted to be heard.
Their moment of fame.
I just like, seriously, I always wanted, we're like, right, like the girls on the sidelines, like, here's your water. But like, I always thought being hurt was cool. Like I was like, man, I wish I could break a leg and get crutches, because that'd be cool. And you know, because all the professional athletes on TV are hurt at some point,
Yeah.
right? Or ice somewhere.
It's like a rite of passage.
Yeah, it was like I wanted to tape my ankles up, and I would
Yeah.
just like get all the athletic tape, and I didn't know what I was doing, and just try. So I've always had it in sort of it was like in my blood from when I was really young, and ended up with rheumatoid arthritis, which, you know, a little thing about it, and actually we didn't talk about this in the documentary that much, is that you know, I knew that like what I loved was taken away from me, meaning because I couldn't tumble anymore.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to be able to do, you know, anything collegiate wise. I was able to finish out high school cheerleading, but we weren't like a competitive squad. So tumbling, you know, wasn't important. But you know, I was able to take that energy and that love for human performance and sports, and like knew I could still be a physical therapist, and I wanted to be a physical therapist that could work with the athlete holistically, just as if, you know, I would want to have been if I was able to go to college and be an athlete too.
Yeah.
You know, so a different level of it. And then just always loved fitness and everything too. So everything in the fitness world was cool. And you know, I went to University of Florida for undergrad, to major in exercise science, and sort of how like really the journey happened outside of my own journey with rheumatoid arthritis, was in my freshman year. I was like looking through our curriculum, and it had the list that we have to, in order to graduate, we have to do a 3-month long internship, like offsite.
Yeah.
And I would go and research all of them. And I found this training facility in Arizona, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do everything my like possibility that when I'm a senior, like I get to go here. This is where the pros go to do combine. This is where the baseball players are going before spring training. And that was like really like that freshman year where I was like, okay, this is the path that I want. Like, I don't want to be a clinical physical therapist that is doing what experience you had. You know, I want to take it to a different level. I want to work with movement. I don't want to manage pain.
That's an important distinction.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the latter, or the traditional way, is much more centered around that, like managing pain, as opposed to, this is why it used to be repair, recover, RPR. Now it's repair, perform, recover. So it's like, it's the holistic approach, which, to that point, like I remember, I mean, I would, whenever I'd come back in Atlanta, Atlanta, like throughout college, I'd come and see you. But like
we've even did virtual consults.
We have. I mean, I'm telling you, it changed. Like I would go to my training room with our trainer at VT, who was awesome, Kyle Staggers. I don't know if he's going to listen, but whatever. Great trainer. And I would do some of the stuff. Like I would do workouts my 5th year. I still do workouts and warm-ups, the RPR scorpions, the 4-way hip release, like all these things I still do. Yeah. Because it wasn't just for one acute injury that I like wanted to manage the pain of. It's like, those are holistic things that help me move better. And you know, it's so interesting. This is not like me bolstering myself. I think there's some level of genetics in play and just how I grew up. But like I went to Cressy, for example, and I know you know Cressy. They were like, dude, you move incredibly. I'm like, thanks, Lauren. Like, it's because all these patterns and these activation exercises and all this stuff that I think is missing from that traditional perspective. But in terms of like the rheumatoid arthritis, what was that like growing up as like as a young woman? Were you like insecure about it? Was it something that was like a pain point for you?
Yeah.
Like,
so
not even literally, obviously it was, but like,
yeah. So in high school, the biggest issue in high school was that all of the drugs. So right now for rheumatoid arthritis, you have these drugs you see on, you know, because everyone in the freaking planet has autoimmune diseases, which we could probably get into that. But so you see it all over, you know, commercials and advertisements now, and they're called like biologic agents, or a lot of them. So, but they were not out when I was diagnosed. So they didn't come out. I did not start taking those until I was in college. So I had all of high school where my disease was completely unmanageable. Like my blood levels were through the roof for the stuff that, you know, tests like your level of inflammation and white blood cell counts and everything. And I was on crap loads of medication.
Rheumatoid arthritis is Could you explain what that is?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disorder. So basically, anytime you hear about something that's an autoimmune disorder, it means your immune system is attacking itself. So something that is healthy and does not need to be under attack by your immune system, it gets a trigger for whatever reason of I need to, go destroy something healthy. Okay. Like something that the immune system should just leave alone, right? Immune systems should be there to fight, foreign substances, external things that we ingest or whatever we do. So rheumatoid arthritis means that you have synovial fluid. So you have a joint. Okay, so a joint is going to be, let's just make it easy, like two bones that come together. Mm-hmm. There's a joint space between them. So in typical arthritis, easiest way to say it is typical arthritis, like osteoarthritis, is like a wear and tear through time of that space, right? That space narrows. That's how you see like arthritic hands. You'll see like the big knuckles and everything sort of changes. So it's a degenerative process. Whereas rheumatoid is your immune system thinking the fluid that nourishes and supports the cartilage, the joint, your immune system thinks that fluid is a virus and should be under attack. So now your body starts attacking that fluid, and then like the synovial membrane that's around it, which is what holds it all together. So it attacks that, and then that is what through time leads to the degeneration of the joint and of the arthritis, like because there's no nourishment left anymore.
And is it specific joints, or is it like any joint in your body is susceptible?
It's mostly common in like hands, wrists, and elbows. Now, like, don't quote me on like stats on that, because like these type of things like can change. But that's usually where you see it the most, is in the arms. It's always, again, don't quote me on all the things here. I'm not a rheumatologist, but it presents bilaterally. So meaning if your right wrist hurts, your left wrist is most likely going to hurt too, because it's a systemic disease. So it's not like acute, having, let's say you eventually get arthritis in your shoulder or your elbow because of the years of pitching. That's because the years of wear and tear and velocity and deceleration forces, right? As you age, then when national degeneration happens, you might be more susceptible to that in a particular joint, or if you're a runner, in your knees. Whereas this, it holds no hostages. Like where it wants to happen, it's going to happen, and it usually happens on both sides. So mine was both wrists and both elbows. So the thing for me is that since all of those drugs, like I said, I was on chemotherapy drugs as a 14-year-old.
Was that like try to manage the pain or try to make it better, or what?
That was the perfect cocktail. That it was sort of the gold standard at the time in the rheumatology world, were these drugs that I was on. And like, if we mix these all, maybe we can get these blood levels under.
Was that to like try to entirely reverse it, or just slow it down, or slow down? There was never
There's no cure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it didn't work. So my degeneration started. And it started really, really, really fast. So a lot of the stuff that I've lost in mobility, so like my right wrist in 2005, I had it completely fused together. So there is a metal rod and 7 plates in this. So like it does not move at all. My elbows.
You chose to do that? That was a surgery?
Yep. So I basically had no more joint space. If you look up a picture of a wrist, you're going to see tons of little bones and tons of little joints everywhere. Basically, I remember when I went to the surgeon to get a consult on it, and he was like, here is the healthy joint. And I was like, no, he put mine up first, actually. So he's like, here's yours. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, there's my, my wrist. And then, and I'm in undergrad at the time, so I didn't know things about x-rays. And then you guys said, here is a healthy joint. And I was like, okay, mine looks like a big pillow of a joint. There was no joint space. It was super cloudy. And the other one, you could like pin, you could
Yeah, you could
highlight
see.
each little individual bone, and you couldn't on mine. So the pain had gotten so bad from that degeneration, I had to make a choice because this was May. I was supposed to be going to physical therapy school in September.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even pick up an empty glass of water
Yeah.
with this hand, but I'm going to school to transfer people in and out of hospital beds.
Yeah.
So we made the decision like really quickly. I was living out in Phoenix at the time, to get the surgery.
Yeah.
And fuse the wrists together, and then let it heal all summer so that I could go to school.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's
So
wild.
that's the thing. So it was, you asked if it was, stressful or if I was self-conscious. And, the first thing I'm going to say about it is I had the best support system. My parents are unbelievable. They never showed a sign of stress or anything. Whereas if you talk to my mom now, she was like, I think it was worse on us than you.
Yeah.
I never would have known that though. So they really were there and supported me and encouraged me to, still do the things that I loved. And like my mom would say, meditate the pain going away. Like imagine your life at night, like lay in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Imagine your life with no rheumatoid. Like, what that feels like. Keep living in that world and not the world that you're going into now. Right. And I give the analogy a little bit when you think about other cases too, where like sometimes when you have no choice, people handle it better than something like people think like, like chronic back pain, right? It's like one of the top like depressing medical conditions. But imagine if like your chronic back pain was because, you had some like infection that could never be reversed and it ended up with chronic back pain. You're gonna be like, well, I still want to live my life.
Yeah.
And so I think about of like if you've had a spinal cord injury, people with brain injuries, strokes, like, you see the, adaptive sports all the time. Like, no one's comfortable with all of these different ways we have to manage our body, but you have no choice. So you figure out a way to like keep living a fulfilled life.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like your back's up against the wall. And to use the like you said, meditate and think about your life with no pain. I feel like that can sound so like fairy tale to a lot of people, but I 100% think that works. Like I think that the mind, you even with like sicknesses or different other diseases, the idea that
you need to read The Expectation Effect.
The Expectation Effect. I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
The Expectation
It's all
Effect.
about how your mind creates your reality. Right? Because your reality isn't going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, we live in a world with 8 million and billion, whatever, other people. Like, they're going to have control over my life. I can't control everything, but the only thing I can control is what's up here.
Yeah. 100%.
So, so that book goes into like placebos and nocebos and just how just case studies and things that they've done with like real medical conditions and how they've been able to show like how much the mind can do these things with, even like people who like, they did one about like having open heart surgery or bypass surgery or something, and like having people who went through this whole like educational long process. This is what's happening to your heart. This is why it's happening. This is what we're going to do in the surgery. This is what you should expect here. Like really dove into holistically, versus people who just did this general, okay, you have to have the surgery. Here's your pre-op visit. Here's your post-op thing. Come back in X amount of weeks. And just how differently they healed and how much better like their condition was afterwards, and that they didn't have as many complications afterwards or any additional heart problems afterwards because they got it. They understood what was going on.
I'm what you would call a placebo effect respecter. I think that it's like an effect is an effect. It doesn't really matter how it happens to me, I mean, I think that it's so important. I'm reminded, I've mentioned this before, but Kobe Bryant who everybody knows. There was a lesser known basketball player named Gordon Hayward. I don't know if you know him. He had like some of those like ankle injuries where you're just like they happen and you're like you don't even want to look.
Yeah.
Like
ankle. Oh, see, I'm the girl who wanted to look at them when I was young.
No, I remember this vividly. He went up for like a layup or a rebound or something and came down and his ankle was like literally the other way.
Yeah. The FSU quarterback. I watched that like on repeat.
Yeah, that was recent too. But Kobe Bryant posted something back when this happened, I don't know, a handful of years ago. And he said, like, start imagining yourself healthy. And that was the first time I was like, sounds a little odd. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, imagine your ankle healing. What the hell is that going to do? But like, since then, like I said, I 100% think that, like sending energy to that place, like healing energy.
We're all energy.
Yeah, 100%.
Like we are. So we're atoms. We're we're the exact same thing. That is the energy that goes out like into the world, you know?
And you can send like bad, like, so say you have a bad perception of an injury. You could like every time you think of your wrist for you, or like maybe it was my shoulder, every time I thought about it, if I thought about it in the way like, oh, this thing's tearing me down. It hurts, it's pain, it's making my life worse, blah, blah, blah. Making that shift to making it into a positive or like a healing energy, I 100% think, I don't know if it's because your body starts to like physically adapt based on those thoughts, or maybe you start subconsciously doing things that make it feel better. I don't know, but it works.
It's also like, you know, we know this in like just like attitudes and beliefs. Like, is the glass half empty or is it half full?
Yeah.
You know, like the differences of the people who are going to go to one of those and to the other, they're different people, right? Like, and it's like how you want to unlock your human potential. Like, you know, like that's up to you. Like, do you want to suffer? Do you want to do things? Do you understand like pain? You know, pain isn't bad.
Yeah.
You want to know what's really bad? If you can't feel pain.
There's the book, Kelsey.
The Gift of Pain.
I've spoken about it on this podcast
so
before.
Good.
I vividly remember being in that other room. Kelsey was telling me about it. Without pain, like you would touch a stove and then burn and you would die. Like you need pain. It's actually an incredible blessing.
Brain's warning signal. It's your brain's warning signal.
If you don't think, nobody thinks about it that way.
It's just a warning thing, just to tell you. And the thing is that just because you feel the pain, it doesn't mean don't do it. And that's what I freaking can't stand about our medical society. Like, if it hurts, don't do it. You know, oh, my knees hurt when I squat. Okay, never squat again. No, your knees probably hurt because you don't know how to squat well. You don't do it enough. But to get out of the car, you have to squat. To get out of bed, you have the freaking toilet. Okay, like it's, why don't we talk about that is a functional thing in life. Let's see. Let's test your mobility. Do you have the right mobility to squat? Most people, though, it's just because they're not strong enough to do things. Like, people aren't resilient in our world, right? We're overweight. We, like, cardio is way too, I think, emphasized in our fitness world, because we think if it's cardio, then we're, you know,
going to lose weight.
We're going to lose weight. Yeah, but, you know, I tell everyone, like, you can work out for physique and things. And this is even for me with rheumatoid arthritis. I'm 41 years old. Like, I still have it and I still have all the damage. But whether it's back pain, whether it's your shoulder, it's building resiliency. Like, that should be the reason that we have fitness first, whether it's a resiliency of our physical body or resiliency of our minds, because we know those go hand in hand.
Yeah, they're two pieces of the club.
And then after that, like, once you start that and you become resilient, you know, the amount of people that come into my office just saying, you know, I have these issues. I got 3 young kids. I want to be able to play with them forever. Like, I love that the world is actually like coming in, being proactive and saying those things now. Right. So that's sort of, you know, where I don't know where I was going with that.
Either way.
We were talking about the mind though, but other thing on that is, do you follow Michael Gervais?
I do not.
What? Write it down.
What's his? How do you spell his last name?
Gervais, I think. I think I'm spelling it right.
We'll find it. I'm sure it'll come up.
He is the sports psychologist who like really teamed up with Pete Carroll. Okay. And he did like all the like. He will be like on the field with the Seahawks.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And they have a center in Southern California together. You can actually like, sign up online and do courses with him now.
Very cool.
He's really big into Microsoft. He works with the whole Microsoft executive team, all on human performance.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what is it? Unlocking Mastery? I think
is that a book?
It's his podcast.
Okay, cool.
But one of the things in there, and it's like story that he said was one of the things that like the power of the mind is like he was a surfer. Again, this is not the particular, like the exact story, but more or less to the point of like he had injured himself surfing. He wanted to be like an elite professional, whatever, surfer, and had disc bulges in his neck from an accident, and was supposed to get surgeries or whatnot. And anyways, instead he like learned everything there was to learn about the neck. So like have you read 90% Mental?
No.
Okay.
I need to read more.
Well, I know, but 90% Mental is a baseball book.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing. Like, even there's so many baseball books. I remember we had this, long story short, there's like, you should read this mental performance book. And all of a sudden you have like 15 mental performance books. It's like, I need to pick one.
Yeah. We'll pick that one.
Yeah.
But anyways, he like, so Michael Gervais like really got into, using like he knew what vertebra looked like. He knew, like, studied, like, when you move, like, how does the vertebra move? What does the disc do? And anyways, basically, like, meditated his disc to heal.
Wow.
Like, he didn't do anything else.
That's pretty
and, like,
wild.
I think, again, you'll have to fact check this, but I think he actually even, like, has the pre and post MRIs of showing actually how the disc healed.
Wow. That's wild. It's true. I gotta look into that. I'm surprised I've never heard of him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you might even actually like once you see him or something, you might be like, oh, I've seen that guy around a lot.
It's true though. I mean, it really is, and I think that perfect example is you. Like growing up with a series of acute injuries that I had. That's a lot different than a chronic disease, right? Because that's something. For me, it was like my toe, my foot, my toe, my knee, my shoulder, my elbow. It was, okay, this is happening. I'm going to get to a point where I can heal it. You found out very early on. It's like, okay, there's not a point where I'm just going to be able to like, this is going to go away. It's not going to go away. You're going to have to figure out how to optimize your life around that variable. Yeah. Right. I want to get into a lot of like the actual PT stuff that you do, but out of curiosity, because one of the first things that I remember Dr. Forty telling me was like, she doesn't go through insurance. And I was like 16 years old or whatever, 17 years old. I'm like, wonder why that is.
Mom and Dad, can I have the credit card?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah. Well, I remember talking to them. I'm like, well, why would she do that? And they're like, they didn't know. Why did you decide to go like away from that into your own practice? Yeah.
So, I mean, my first experience with physical therapy, like, yes, I didn't actually really go through physical therapy myself with my rheumatoid. But like I had to sleep in braces and splints. So I would go to the physical therapist and they would like measure and give me the braces and just tell me exercises to do. I was active, so it wasn't like I was still going. So with rheumatoid, you feel better by the end of the day. You feel worse when you first wake up. So after school, I could actually go to the gym and do things. And, like I said, I still did cheerleading, because cheerleading was after school. But if anything had to be in the morning, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So for physical therapy, I never really went myself, but so my first experience was when I was a strength and conditioning intern at the training facility in Arizona, where all the athletes got one-on-one physical therapy. And yes, because the athletes sort of like lived there for a period of time. And so, so you had one athlete for 1 hour, and so I would sit and shadow them, and I saw how they worked and did things. And that was another thing. I was like, that's what I want to do, because they got physical therapy even if they didn't have pain. Yeah. Right? Because it was, okay, the PT's job is to look at movement patterns and find movement patterns that put you at risk for injury. That should be the primary job of a physical therapist who works in athletics. So that's one thing that I took into my own practice once I started practicing myself, right?
And that just doesn't happen at like, I don't want to speak too generally, but speaking generally, that doesn't happen at traditional places. It's
well, this is
not like
an
that.
example. One of my guys, CrossFitters that came in today, he was in shorts and a t-shirt like in the office, and they're like, why are you in shorts and a t-shirt? And he's like, oh, because I have to leave at lunch to go see my PT. And they're like, oh, why? Because you hurt yourself? And he's like, no, because I'm trying to improve my squat pattern and get better
I don't want
at
to get
pull-ups.
hurt.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why he comes in.
Yeah.
So with that, like my first experience of like a real PT world was in a place that you got private one-on-one sessions where insurance wasn't taken.
Yeah.
So I saw what they did. Then I go to PT school, right? And I have to, you do all of your internships and rotations and whatnot. And I saw how different it was. And I'm like, this is a machine. Like there's no time to I don't get to spend 60 minutes with somebody to try to fix their problem. Except in athletics, they don't care. The team will play, the agent will pay, somebody will pay, because someone's like, that arm is worth $10 million. You better make sure it never gets hurt, right? And if there is an issue, fix it as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. So the problem with insurance in a generalized clinic that you're going to see in a strip mall is that the insurance reimbursement rates for clinics are so low, the clinic would never be able to survive if you did one-on-one physical therapy. So, and it changes all the time. And every insurance provider as well is different. So I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to say when I first moved to Atlanta, I did run clinics for a big PT company, because when I moved here, I didn't know anyone in sports and weightlifting and CrossFit. So I had to just like take a job and then network. They would tell me with a certain type of insurance, you need to triple book your hour. If you have this insurance, you can take somebody every half hour. So you can get one-on-one for a half hour. If you have Medicare, it has to be one-on-one. So isn't that funny? Yeah. Like the government who regulates insurance understands and makes it one-on-one, but all the other ones, you could be there with 5 people. And so that's really why you can't take insurance. Yeah. And then you think these clinics, you have to have the insurance adjuster at the front desk. You have the front desk scheduler.
Just so much stuff.
There's so much overhead, so much everything. And that's why, too, in our practice, we actually, we have offices out of a CrossFit gym where I can keep my overhead low. We do all scheduling online, all things. So we don't have to pay other people. So even though we don't take insurance, we're really reasonable, in our rates, because we want to be able to reach as many people as possible. Yeah. And that is why we also haven't gone and made some big fancy facility yet, because to still do the one-on-one PT, I mean, our initial evals you get 90 minutes with me, So does that make sense though? Yeah. Why you don't take insurance?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, kind of. To me, it makes a total sense. I mean, I'm even there's a thing called crowd health. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's like a new type of health, and I don't even want to call it health insurance. It's a new way to operate that whole world, which is really fascinating. But to me, it makes entire sense. And it also, from your perspective, if somebody's going to fork up, maybe it's not for everybody, honestly, which is the reality. But for an athlete that's really concerned with how their body moves and performing physically, it shows a level of investment for you, obviously, because you're like, okay, if I'm going to spend this much money to come for an eval, then I'm probably going to spend this much money to come to follow-ups and stuff like that. There's a level of investment in that decision that's probably good for you. And
it also helps people heal better.
Yeah, 100%.
Because, people are saying, I'm spending $185 for this eval, and when I get my email back with all my exercises, or we also just tell people of different habits they have to change, small things that I'm going to do it. Otherwise, why am I spending $185 to go see this person? And so, your investment part of that, by paying out of pocket, I think, might even subconsciously help people a bit more. And the other thing, too, is I see somebody for their eval. The first time they come back is minimum in 2 weeks, because then we could get into later stuff about what we do, which is another part about that. But I want to give someone, I want to say, these are your exercises. You need to do them. And if you're an active, eager professional, I don't care if it's even a weekend warrior.
Yeah.
But, why am I going to waste your time and your money and babysit you through exercises?
Yeah.
Now, if you want to do personal training with us, you can come in as often as you want if you want to pay for that. But for, your corrective exercises, you can do those on your own. So think about some of the exercises you were doing when you went. You're like, why am I here?
Yeah, but it's also to learn, for example, let's say, so you showed me how to do the 4-way hip release or whatever. You showed me how to do that. I do it on my own, and then I come back. If we do it together, you can be like, hey, you're actually doing, when you're doing this part, you're doing this. You need to fix it. So I think there's so much merit to that. And
it's better to be cohesive and working together, versus authoritative, which I think is a little bit you come in, you go over there, do those exercises, 50 reps. Come over here, do those exercises, 50 reps. And then it's well, why am I doing all these things? Well, because the PT has to manage 3 to 5 people at the same time. If I tell you to do something and it only is 6 reps, I didn't even make it to the other side of the clinic yet to tell the other person what they should be doing. So I personally think in a physical therapy clinic, it should be called small group training. You know what I mean? In the morning, you see your shoulders. At lunch, you see your backs. But think about that too, because so many people get disappointed with some of the level of care that they get in physical therapy clinics. So be honest with people.
Yeah.
Tell people your insurance does not cover one-on-one physical therapy in our setting. So
but that doesn't get discussed. Yeah, that doesn't get discussed.
Yeah, you will be booked with 3 people. And if you know that, though,
you can at least have the expectation.
Yeah, I used to, when I was in school, we had a program for people getting total knees and total hips. And they would have to do a prehab program. They came in as a small group. Everyone did their knee strengthening exercises together, their hip strengthening exercises together. You could do sort of the same sort of thing. But right now, I think everyone's just desperate. They'll take whatever walks in the door whenever it wants to walk in the door. So
yeah, the other thing that I was just thinking about as it relates to why y'all's particular clinic or practice is the way it is. Somebody a traditional PT, if they were doing needling or scraping or something like that, they wouldn't be able to scrape all 5 people, right?
Yeah.
In that hour, so they don't do that. Which is
you get limited. You get limited by the reimbursement rates, about the time. I mean, our people who get dry needling from me have a very different experience because it's a one-on-one personalized experience. So it's the same thing as if you do one-on-one personal training or you go to a small group fitness class. Your personalized experience and the quality of the coaching and, stop what you're doing real quick. I can't say stop. Your squats look really bad. You might hurt your knees in the middle of Barry's boot camp. Yeah. Right? So you just have to keep going. Yeah. And you might not be getting what you could get out of that workout. And I'm not, another thing about it too is what I'm saying about the regular PT clinics is there is such a place for that too. If you're someone who does not work out, if you're someone who doesn't even take walks, those experiences where you go there is like going to your small group, training session because you don't exercise at all. Yeah. Or if you're getting out of surgery where you're not even allowed to lift your arm over your head yet, you can go there and someone can help you for that. And you need it to do it more often. So you can go to a place to use the surgery, but there's going to be a definitive for someone like you For someone like me, we're going to go, okay, I need more now.
Yeah. And then that's like, that's literally what happened to me. I was like, okay, this is just simply not working. I want to get to a particular place. This process that I'm using right now is not going to get me there. So I need to make the switch. And like I mentioned before, the first, maybe it wasn't the first time I ever came, but long story short, needling, cupping, and scraping are like the three things that I remember being so helpful. At that point, I had never heard of anybody. Like cupping was like something that Michael Phelps did, and people thought he was crazy. And then needling was like Chinese medicine, and scraping like
witch doctor
scraping.
stuff.
Why would you bruise
yourself? I'm like, it's not a bruise.
Yeah.
It's not a bruise.
Yeah.
I mean, we try to be if your listeners, when they like after this, if they go to our Instagram, like we're very forward as to what we're doing. We try to really explain it, because it's the other thing is like it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, right. But like, some type of intense lifting program isn't for everybody, right? There's choices in healthcare and in fitness that can fit anybody's little box of what they're looking for, their goals, what they want to try, what's appropriate for them. It changes through your life cycle. Like that, there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
This is what we do, which we haven't really even explained it yet, but like it's different, it's aggressive, it looks different, but like it has a specific point, place, and reason for it for specific people. And it's gonna work. I mean, do you remember James Harrison?
Yeah.
Do you remember like he says like he spends what did he say? He spends like $700 and something dollars.
He gets needled all the time, right? Or acupuncture or whatever.
Yeah, he would get needling. He did a National Geographic photo shoot with like cups on him.
Wow.
And whatnot, and
talk
one
about
of the
physical
biggest
specimen too.
Yeah, and played into his 40s.
Yeah.
And he just said, he's like, call it whatever you want. If you don't think it works, that's fine. But like, I feel good, and this is what's maintaining my career. So like, so why do you have to? You don't need to come down on people about that.
There's a ongoing joke.
If you want to eat Chick-fil-A, have fun. Yeah. I won't be there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go play in the NFL.
Yeah.
But there's an ongoing joke where it's like, what's your source? Like what's your source? What's your source? Everybody needs a source. Everybody needs to rationalize something. And it kind of goes back to the placebo. It's like anecdotal data is still data. Like if it works for you, then that means it works.
Yeah.
If it works for me, that means it works. Like to me, that we try to rationalize so many things, and sometimes I just think that
there's different style of learning. There's morning people. There's evening people. Like you can't. No one should ever throw like you're right, you're wrong, or because like you don't live in my body and know what I feel, right?
There's a level of there's a level of like there's bio-individuality. Like that's a real thing. Like your body responds differently to something than my body.
Your DNA and my DNA aren't the same.
And what happens on a macro scale of the modern medicine, the Western medicine system is like just throwing the same thing at everybody. There's no individuality. It's like, okay, this is the protocol for shoulders. This is the protocol for surgery. This is the protocol for this disease. This is what drug you're going to get if you have this mental symptom. There's no individuality. And this is why I think practices like yours, and I'm sure there's tons of them out there now, at least they're growing. People want decentralized health. They want decentralized medicine, because when you do that, you're going to be paying more. But just like any investment, if you pay more, you're going to get a bigger reward. So that's what I think. Go ahead.
Oh no, wait. And with that, even like what we were talking about when you asked about the insurance stuff too, it was like if you actually break down putting a little bit more money forward for something like paying cash for something or getting the higher X, Y, and Z, in the long run, you are going to get more attention, heal better, to know that you're going to not be paying all of the additional money as the years go on for each subsequent thing that hasn't been addressed, hasn't been taken care of, didn't get as much like holistic care. Like I had one guy one time, he would just complain chronic pain in his hands, chronic pain. He was like convinced like probably have like, maybe I have rheumatoid arthritis, or just like really systemic inflammation and whatnot. literally, we got him to start drinking a gallon of water a day. Guess what? The man doesn't have anymore.
Man.
Yeah. But but like who, if he goes to the orthopedist or if he goes to a clinic where they can't sit and have these really one-on-one get to know you, we have nutrition practice and that's part of Recover is our nutrition program that we run. But when you get time and you spend a little bit more money, like you're going to, the practitioner can uncover and help you out with like some bigger picture things that aren't, like you said, aren't the cookie cutter thing that comes out of, the manual.
Yeah. There's a saying, it's invest in your health now or spend on your illness later. It's exactly
100%.
Exactly what you're speaking about.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to get into, because I'm actually not really sure at all what the benefits are or why it works, but like needling. So this is kind of granular, but like what does needling do? Dry needling.
Yeah. So I'm glad you even asked that question because people just assume
other than hurt and feel extremely uncomfortable.
Yes, it doesn't, So the coolest thing about dry needling, and I'm going to like backtrack real quick about when we talked about, the difference like of orthopedics and the type of PT I wanted to do. And that is that I was always way more interested in the nervous system. And that's why we talk about like movement patterns, right? Motor control, that's sports, right? And that's life. When you're in physical therapy school, at least when I was, the orthopedic classes and the neurology classes, so for spinal cord injuries and strokes and whatnot, they were very separate, right? But the majority of people who come into, a PT clinic for orthopedic stuff, right? They don't have traumatic accidents, right? And even if you did, so let's say you ended up having your rotator, like for you, for example, did you have one incident?
Yeah, I slid in a home plate, dislocated my shoulder, tore my labrum.
So that's one traumatic incident, okay? So maybe how you move, how you pitch, how you bat, maybe those had nothing to do with that. So that's a very orthopedic specific thing. However, let's say you're a baseball pitcher who tears their labrum on their pitching side, right? Which we always said it was funny that you ended up with the non-pitching
Everything
side.
was on my left.
When it's supposed to be the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
In baseball.
It doesn't make sense.
But if you're just through time, like that labrum where is pain, right? And then you get images, nothing's wrong. And then 6 months later, all of a sudden you find out, actually, now I have a labrum tear. That wasn't a traumatic event.
Yeah.
That was a neurological problem. That was a movement programming problem of your biomechanics and how you've moved, right? That has caused something, repetitive stress through time, created an injury. So to me, yes, I need to know the orthopedic science so that your labrum heals properly, because people don't have to always have surgery on it.
Yeah.
You had to because it was traumatic, right? But a lot of people don't. And so now if I know, okay, there's a tear here, but it's going to heal just fine, now I need to work with your nervous system. I need to teach you how to move through space better.
Reprogram,
I need to teach you sports again. And then and build a program around it for your exercises so that now that labrum is stronger, the muscles around it are stronger, and your mechanics, right? A lot of it is because of the deceleration forces. Mm-hmm. So I need to
I remember we did a ton of, even when because we would do stuff with my throwing arm, even though I wasn't injured. We used to do a ton of deceleration. Lots of tempos, lots of speed work. So I need to, does that make sense? Absolutely.
I'm working with your movement, your neurology of motor control patterns, your neuromuscular system, how the nerves and the muscles are working together.
Yeah,
right?
And that's also how you prevent
and it's also how you break down film, right? Like when you sit with a pitching coach, what were you watching? You weren't just watching did you hit a strike zone?
Yeah.
You're watching like how were you moving through space? How
Yeah.
can we alter things, right?
Yeah, that especially nowadays, like with all this stuff,
With
like
all
Wake
the-
Forest is a great example. They have like just the amount of technology. This is specific to baseball, but it actually applies to a lot of stuff. Like the amount of data that there is now in so many of the sports as it relates to how you move. Like so slow motion cameras, force plates,
So much freaking fun.
these sensor things where
Sensors
they
that
can
you put
literally
on your
see,
body. Yeah.
where they can literally see like the
Did you
angles
ever
and the
watch
force.
Sports Science on
Oh yeah,
ESPN?
100%.
Oh, so my favorite show.
Yeah.
Why would they not do that anymore?
I have no idea. I used to watch all those, but like that the point is, you're exactly right, because the whole point, like, so for me, my example would be trying to throw harder. Okay, so we would watch film. It's like, okay, how is my hip going into internal rotation as I go down the slope? Okay, it's not that much. How can I arrange my program?
Not right.
Yeah, exactly. How can I arrange my program so that my spine movement or mobility is better, my hip mobility is better? I can actually control that level of mobility as I work down the slope. Then I'm in more internal rotation, then I can throw harder. That type of stuff. So I think you're totally right, and that's never something that I've really thought about, because there is like the traumatic. Okay, the Florida State quarterback. That's a traumatic. He needs to go in there and they need to fix some shit right away. That's not a movement thing. That literally was somebody smashing into his leg.
Yep.
Whereas like a meniscus, oftentimes
meniscus usually isn't traumatic.
Yeah, it's like over time you just hurt, and then you get an MRI. It's like, oh wait, I have a little tear.
Yep.
You're exactly right in that there is like a level of programming that if that was in place, then you wouldn't have that issue because your body would be moving appropriately.
Yep.
So that's an interesting part of your job.
And so that's sort of too, we work mostly now in, I still have my big baseball and football backgrounds, but, we're in CrossFit now just because now all of a sudden you have the general population picking up a barbell and doing an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
In that and in gymnastics skills, right? So these aren't bodybuilders.
Yeah, these are regular people. These are my Spanish teacher, Miss Al.
Yeah, but they're now moving through space and creating through repetition the same thing that a professional athlete is doing in these sports, right? So
there's a huge market now, I feel like, for it.
Yeah, so now that we are specialists in these, weightlifting sports and things, is that when someone comes in and for example, I had a girl the other day coming in and her complaint was after toes to bar, my shoulder completely locked up. And now, I have pain when I do this and I have to modify stuff. And I'm like, okay, I understand the biomechanics of doing toes to bar. Whereas if she went to like a PT down the street, would they know what toes to bar is?
Probably
would they know the proper, again, how the shoulder has to glide, how the spine has to extend, like all of the different things, testing the strength of the lats in order to do it. So we know that. So that's how now we're taking sports that more everyday individuals are doing, and we can do the same thing that I learned how to do when I was working in professional sports and in these centers. And that's actually how I started my own business.
Yeah. I
left LA. My friends in DC were opening up 3 CrossFit gyms, like within their Globo gyms. And they said, why don't we make a pitch to the owners? Let's put our own physical therapy practice in that you can run. And because CrossFitters, this is their lifestyle.
You're seeing that a lot more often now.
What? So
jiu-jitsu is one that comes to mind. I know of several jiu-jitsu gyms with PTs associated with the jiu-jitsu gym because it's a different style of.
Yeah.
It also to me, so many things that are awry, like that are wrong with the Western world, is the centralization, and all this is speaking about is decentralization of the medical system, physical therapy in this instance, because if it was a centralized system, as you mentioned, that PT, it's not the PT's fault.
No.
How would they know how to do
fault.
everything? How would they know the biomechanics of every movement? So this is why if you're a baseball player, you go to a baseball PT and you have better results.
You go to Mike Reinhold, who's
I
with
was literally, that's what I was thinking. Then you go to, if you're a CrossFitter, you come to a place like this. If you're a jiu-jitsu guy, if you have a PT that does jiu-jitsu and understands the biomechanics of jiu-jitsu, then they will infinitely more skillfully be able to tell you, hey, like this is what's going on. Here's how we're going to rewire your programming and all this stuff. So I think that's
Well, and two,
phenomenal.
like for me who like dove into more specialty things, like I get jujitsu guys
Yeah.
all the time. So
CrossFit and jiu-jitsu are actually like a lot of people do
a lot
both.
of they're dual opening facilities, a lot of them now. But like one of
Team Octopus,
my
I think,
girls
is
the
one
other
of them,
day
yeah.
who was a CrossFitter just transitioned to jiu-jitsu,
There you
you
go.
know, and she came in last week and we worked on her. But the thing is too is if you start learning to think this way from a younger age, which is what I'm so fortunate. That's what I did when I was the strength and conditioning intern, because everyone was sports specific. Like, you know, our football players, why are our football players doing power cleans and we won't ever let our baseball player pick up a barbell?
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
There's a reason of how you structure strength and conditioning programs around to be sport specific.
Yeah.
But if you start thinking about this from the beginning, I can take a film now of any type of athlete. I'm not going to be the expert in telling you what to do to make the sport thing, but I'm going to be able to see and to recognize where something is breaking down or something is wrong. Now, like I said, I'm not going to have all the same answers, but I still think, since this is what we've been doing our whole careers, that, you know,
You start to see some patterns and stuff.
Yeah, that you can at least be way more beneficial and helpful. Whereas when you're forced, like you said, into these more centralized things, you don't have the time, you're too busy, like you can never dive in to really being like a specialist for a person.
From the PT's perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
So
know.
how does needling like?
Yeah, so there we go. So we just talked a lot about that, right?
Yeah.
Like the effects of, like I said, like the nervous system working with the muscular and skeletal system create movement patterns. That's right. If you don't have a nerve, you can't move.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, the muscle is still there, but you
Yeah.
cannot move. So dry needling, the effects of dry needling is because of what happens is the effect of what the nervous system does. If you come in your case, right? Let's think, for example, like something that you've done where we've needled you, like outside of surgeries and things.
So I remember the most painful
hip.
needle I've got. Oh my gosh, the
Yeah.
glute, when you needle a glute, just the level of activation,
Yep. So
which I didn't have surgery on. That was
Yep. So when I'm looking at your movement pattern or saying, okay, we're trying to create better movement through this range of motion or whatnot, you know, we always assess, we do movements with you, look at things with some of my people. I'll be like, send me videos of, you know, you doing your sport or whatnot. Is that then I'm going to choose specific muscles to dry needle in order to create your movement pattern better. And that's how it happens, is that when the needle, okay, what a true trigger point is. So needling is called trigger point dry needling, what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Through repetition, stress, like little injury, you know, just mean like you have like a naggy thing that you just work through over and over again. Just pure exhaustion. Muscle, you know, each muscle cell sort of contracts, like basically when it contracts, filaments move together. When it relaxes, it moves apart, right? So it's this pump system, and every single cell has to do that to create a full muscle contraction. But if you look at muscle, you have thousands of muscle fibers within a muscle, okay? How you move, meaning if you're squatting with a little more external rotation versus your knees straight, you're going to require different parts of different muscles over and over and over again because your movement pattern. So if I look at how you move and I see an area where I'm like, you're probably exhausting out this place, or this place isn't participating, I can use dry needling and to improve that. And so what it does is that a true trigger point means a muscle cell has contracted and now it's stuck. So there's no more. So energy has to come in to contract. Energy has to leave to relax, right? So it's a pump system.
Yep.
ATP. You've heard of it probably before, right? Yeah. Like they have ATP in what, like pre-workout drinks. They have a little stuff trying to give you a little boost type of thing. So what dry needling does is if I make the right decision and I'm working on the right muscle that you specifically need, when that needle hits that little fiber, a reflex comes out of your spinal cord. Okay, spinal cord reflex. Remember when you go to the pediatrician as a kid, they hit your knee and your leg involuntarily jumped? What happens when I needle you? What happens to your muscle?
Just spasms.
It involuntarily jumps, right? So a reflex comes out of your spinal cord, comes down the nerve, because it has to come down the nerve, into the muscle, and creates the muscle to create a localized twitch response, and it actually starts to restore that whole energy cycle again. So now the muscle is stronger again because it can contract, and now it can relax and be more mobile. So it's basically like resetting overused damaged cells. So and it happens from your nervous system. Yeah. So when I have clients who come in who, you know, like they can't break 90 degrees on a squat because they're being like blocked because they're using their hip flexors or the quads or something too much, and it's leading to back pain. Yeah. Because now they don't have full mobility. If I can assess their movement patterns the right way, going, that's the problem area, what you're doing, and you're not moving appropriately, I can needle that, get your nervous system to release and reset that. And I'm saying like release and all these terms in like easy terms, but I can treat that. And now let's talk about the other thing about it. It's your own body healing itself. I am not causing the response of that nerve shooting a signal down your nerve into the muscle and getting that muscle to fire. I put the needle in and the needle created the reflex, but it was your own body doing it to yourself. Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing. It's I'm sure you've dripped sweat from head to toe. I'm sure you've laughed and cried and, you know, probably left this office being like, I am exhausted because it's your central nervous system. It created a fight or flight response. Yeah. Right?
It's incredibly uncomfortable. Yeah. At least in certain instances.
But right, like what's uncomfortable that makes you what's comfortable that makes you better?
Very few things, if anything.
Very few things. Yeah. Like the rewards, right, on it, but like the journey to getting there, you know, the comforting part is now you just had a great game in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, right? I remember like not like specific instances, but I do remember vaguely coming in having, let's say with my forearm, because I used to actually get my forearm needed, my right forearm, my pitching arm, because just like that's all pitching is. It's just contracting your forearm. Probably still tight.
And but you did. I mean, I can look at someone who grew up their whole life pitching. I can look at them at 50 years old and be like, you pitched, didn't you?
Yeah, probably because of the imbalances. Yeah.
Well, because you were developing, but your arm developed as a baseball pitcher. It didn't develop as a kid playing video games.
Yeah, it's a great point.
So it looks different.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I remember, like, my point was, I remember trying to think if there's like a specific instance, but I remember like coming in, I mean, after throwing 100 pitches or whatever, like your arm, like it would be pretty sore. You come in, get needled, and it would feel like, you use the word release. Like it would feel, sometimes it would feel more sore, but it would just feel.
It's like you feel the pressure change.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a pressure. It's like a pressure release almost. Yeah. Which is very cool.
I sort of say it's like if you have this really taut muscle, right? That's like so tight and it just won't forgive. It doesn't matter how much you stretch it or whatnot. It's like if someone would just like deflate that balloon that's, you know, overly blown up in there, and then you're just like, oh, yeah. And, you said sore, you said uncomfortable. The things about it, too, is that it's this needling that we use for trigger point dry needling. It's an acupuncture needle. This is not a syringe that's actually causing trauma. You don't bleed. No. Right?
You probably couldn't even, you can hardly even see it.
You can't. The actual needle point is microscopic to the human eye.
Wow.
And so think about that too. That is what's creating this response that can twitch your whole body. I think it's sort of fascinating to show you how such little problems and such little cells can create such big problems. I mean, think about what happens in the heart. Think about what happens in cancer. Some of the stuff is very, very, very small that creates very, very, very big issues.
Yeah, like you're talking about literally a microscopic needle, like in my glute, for example. I remember that vividly because those were like my entire glute is just contracting, and it's like this tiny, like you're exactly right. You don't bleed, like at least I didn't. I will tell you this.
The soreness though is because of like acid being released that's been stuck in this top muscle, right?
Makes sense, yeah.
Like if you're trying to use something that can't function, that area is going to get inflamed. There's a lot of like straight up hydrogen ions, which is our acidic that can accumulate in the muscle. So when you release it, you're releasing everything out. So that's where the soreness comes from, which is another thing that's different, right? Is like in our practice, what do I always tell you to do after you get dry needled and you're sore?
I can't remember, honestly.
Move.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Like we give you stretches to do. We give you things, don't baby this. You don't take anti-inflammatories afterwards. You don't ice afterwards. We just allowed your central nervous system to heal itself, which is one of the coolest things on the planet, right? And so I want now you to retrain your body. Yeah. And they actually even have shown with dry needling, as you needle it, the motor cortex of your brain that controls that muscle actually is basically, think of like, it's almost like on heightened alert. It's getting a signal.
So it's a good time to move.
That's the perfect time to then you go out there, you work on something for baseball, you work on your squat mechanics, you work on something that you need to specifically for jiu-jitsu. Like your body's ready to learn something new. And the amount of people that after we dry needle, 2 days later send me, here's my PR.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's really cool. And yes, it's not for everyone. So like sort of what we're talking about with the clinics and different things is that I always say this is not for everyone also because I need to know the health of your nervous system, right?
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, right, it's not, I can't go have my mom do some completely grueling athletic activity at 77 years old because she doesn't do anything that, she'd be wiped out. She'd probably get sick. Because she doesn't train it. So the other thing is that like with needling and everyone has their own opinions on this stuff, but, we think that we get very good responses with the population that we serve because in jiu-jitsu, your nervous system is fried in how many minutes?
Not a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Tough. Right. And so that's the thing, right? Like your reset there isn't because also you're not strong enough or you're not mobile enough or anything. It's also this nervous system response.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're on heightened alert and you're fighting for your life.
Yeah, literally.
Right. Like literally. Yeah. So the same thing as if you get under a 500-pound barbell, you're fighting for your life trying to get up out of that, right? There's a reason why you don't, PR your deadlift. You don't try to once a week.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do what we do in our practice. Also, very specific for knowing who we're serving. And some people might not even still be like, I can't handle that. I don't like that. And that's fine, there's people that you probably could tell them I'd give you $1,000 if you did a 5-minute cold plunge and they won't do it.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah. But right, it's the nature of the person.
It is, absolutely. People are more adverse to those types of things. I will say I got needling done. I don't want to say any names or anything. I got needling done from a trainer at some point in my career. And
I remember this.
And it got me good. It was not right. The training was not there. The training was not. I don't think the prerequisite training was there. I don't think the knowledge was there. I certainly don't think the care was there when this trainer did this practice to me. But I instantly knew it. Something happened, and I guess the needle hit like something that it should have, and
Yeah. You
instantaneously,
texted me like
yeah,
right away.
I was like, "What the hell just happened?" That being said, it is. I wanted to say that because I don't want anybody that's listening to like go buy needles or something and then
Yeah.
like start. It is. I
No, I
feel
mean
like
you have to be a
if you have
licensed
training, I think you have
profession.
like a look
Yeah.
right there, dry needling certification.
Yeah. No, and that's the other thing. Dry needling, every state is different. So every state has their own laws behind it. Like in the state of Georgia, as a physical therapist, you have to get 50 hours of continuing education before you're allowed to get your dry needling license in the state. Other California, you can't even dry needle. So every state is different. And that's one thing that I like, at least in Georgia, that they put the 50-hour mark on, because it's trendy. So you have a very, I mean, I joke and I say it's physical therapy surgery, right?
Yeah.
Like the prep that I do leading up to it, the conversations, like I spend a good 10 minutes explaining to people what we're doing, why we're doing it, what you can expect. Here's, setting them up in the right way. We have a very specific way. Again, if you have 5 people at once, you can't do that.
Yeah, you just
Yeah, but then too, like as a practitioner, I'm not learning how to be good at my skill, right? Like versus when I get all this time with you, and if I'm trying to learn from every patient that I treat, I can be like, oh, this isn't working for this person. Hold on, like I have plenty of time. Let me change my setup. Let me reassess something. I do tons of reassessment throughout the sessions. Make sure that what I'm doing and the attention that I'm putting into when I treat you, it's also something that we take a lot of pride in. Like today, even I was needling somebody and they're talking. And I was like, when we got done needling, I was like, you're going to have to repeat everything you just said, because like all I was doing, like I was talking to your body and feeling what the needle is, giving me information back, how I'm moving that needle, how long I decide to do this procedure. Like I can't, have a conversation with you. Yeah. Whereas other times I can be like, oh, whatever, let's talk about the next comedy show you're going to. But, there's certain times and certain places where you got a needle actually is one of them that I will not talk during that, because there's too many nerves around.
In the glute or the elbow or where?
No, in the elbow, in the forearm.
Yeah. See, maybe that makes sense, because when this happened, it was my forearm and it was a crowded training room.
Yep.
And maybe because that's the last time I got needled.
Like 5 minutes to even set someone up the right way.
Yeah. That was the last time I was like, I'm not doing this anymore here. I need to.
But yeah, so it's, as we just said, all of this stuff, there's going to be people that agree with me on some things. There's going to be people who don't. There will be people who are sort of interested. Other people are going to be like, I'm never touching that idea with my whole life. But it's just, it's just like you said,
scraping is one of those. Like, I feel like scraping is very, what's the word? It's not an enigma, but people are opinionated, especially in like the training space about it. What's your take on it?
Scraping. So basically, what you are referring to, for people who don't know, is the use of a tool on the surface of the skin at a particular angle. It's traditionally called gua sha from Chinese medicine, but other Asian, Eastern cultures, like in like Cambodia, they use coins.
Oh, wow.
Actually, and then it's a coining treatment. I know people in Vietnam where they did it like the elders and their family would do it. Like if they were sick, they would scrape the chest to try to increase blood flow and get more space and opening there. So, this stuff too, it's sort of like, I think what we're seeing a lot in people that want to be like more holistic, it's like, if it's not hurting me, and if the person knows what they're doing, or even like, let's talk about like taking certain supplements, that are all natural, out there, is people have been doing this forever.
Yeah.
So, maybe we can't show you the most perfect science because it's too subjective in so many different ways to get like the right data. But like, if it helps you, then it helps you.
Cupping is the same. Like that's another thing. People. This is what I was talking about earlier. People are like, "Where's your study? Where's your study?" And like, well, I'm telling you right now that it made my shoulder and my elbow feel better when I got those things done. I literally don't need to see a study. Like I don't care. Keep it.
And what with scraping, so the use of an instrument, and it's so funny now because women are doing it on their faces. Yeah. Not with like the same tool we use, so it's softer, but is the one of the biggest things is, and again, I went to PT school a long time ago, and I don't know what's happening in a lot of the new world, but we weren't taught about fascia. Like we know what fascia is. It's part of your anatomy lesson, but like as far as treating fascia or it being a problem to limiting mobility or pain or blood flow, we didn't learn about it. Now, like, what does every freaking person on the planet have? A foam roller, a lacrosse ball, and a Theragun.
Yeah, straight up.
Right?
Literally all three of those things.
Yeah,
those are all in my baseball bag. I would like all three of those.
And, your fascia is basically your connective tissue that creates tension around muscle, around organs and things, right? So it covers everything. So, like, think about if you take, right, like a raw chicken and you're gonna like pull it apart into its individual pieces, like the white film that you're sort of breaking that connects and has kept that chicken together, right? That's sort of like, that's what your fascia is, right? So if you didn't have fascia, you couldn't create enough tension to throw a baseball because it also transfers tension from one muscle to the next muscle, right? So it's like it's what helps create kinetic chains.
I saw a post recently about how that's going to be, how fascia is going to be like the next most studied thing in performance.
It should be.
Yeah,
it should be. And so with the tool and scraping, it's hard. I do not. Everyone that comes in my office, I choose something specific based off of their movement quality. If I see a really stiff, rigid shoulder that the person sort of stops, like they get here and they're just stuck, okay? I mean, a lot of times I can assess that and I'll see a fascial problem where there's tight, really adhered tissue. I say it's almost like that fascia is holding your muscles hostage in your own body. Mm-hmm. So you're moving through space and like you're not getting the right, freedom of motion. Now, if someone has perfect range of motion and just goes like this, but they're like, oh, that hurts so bad, they're going to think more trigger point. Right? Because deep little muscles that are supposed to stabilize and fire the way. So, and that's just like one example. If I see someone bend over and touch their toes and their back won't flex, so it's almost like they're touching their toes, but it looks like you could put a glass of water on their back.
Yeah.
Cups right away. I'm going to loosen up all that tight, overly extended tissue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I remember even with cups on, we would do
mobility,
child's play or child's pose or whatever it is, and that's one of those things. I'm like that feels good. Like,
so the funniest thing about it is with that, because a lot of spine surgeries are like decompressive surgeries, right? Because you have compressed discs and nerves and whatnot.
Yeah, because our whole lives is gravity, the weights is all
just like something that's supposed to be this big is now this big. So now that's why there's this compression issue, right? It's same reason that they tell people to go on inversion tables, hang upside down, decompress, stretch everything out. Chiropractor's office have those machines that can do decompression. So what does cupping do? You put the cup on and then you pull and vacuum everything away. So you're decompressing.
Yeah.
Right? And then, if I pull everything away, get better blood flow in there, so you can see those cups get really nice and red, and then I actually have you move with the cups on, now your spine is moving through space and it's not being impinged upon by that compressed tissue. So you're like, again, that's sort of a natural way that we're allowing your own body to heal itself. Same thing with scraping. I scrape on your tissue. If you get, it's not a bruise, it's called petechia. Okay. So it's the small little micro trauma, not bad micro trauma. Everyone's going to live, but that opens up all of that excess capillaries that has been in this fascia. That's what you're breaking apart. And then, because you've been scraped before, like after like your first session, if you're healing the right way, what happens on your second session? It's not as red, right?
That's why I remember the first time I was like, it looks like somebody just beat the shit out of me. It literally just
dragged through asphalt.
It's another thing. Like, I actually don't care at all about a study. Like, somebody could show me a study that says it doesn't work, and I'd be like, I don't care. Somebody could show me a study that says it works.
As long as you're not doing something absolutely crazy.
But it would, like, for me, like, I remember doing this here, and then with Stags in college, we would do scraping. I can't remember the tools that he would use. It was a little bit different. It was a little bit different than like the style that you would do. But either way, like going into it, my forearm, especially like my forearm, and people that I'm trying to think about, like a regular, maybe like traps for regular people. Traps get really, really tight because people are always like this.
Time under tension because everyone's like this all the time.
So think about that on my forearm.
The tissue's going to develop the way you put tension on it, even if it's not weightlifting or something crazy like sports.
This is why traps are a big tell for performance enhancing, like for steroids.
Yeah.
Because they're already there's already so much tension. So if you're taking performance enhancements, then they're going to grow because they're already under so much tension. But yeah, I remember like even scraping, massage too, any type of thing that cupping, I would do all that stuff at Virginia Tech just to somehow, number one, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just wanted blood flow, like the sauna too. I just wanted more blood flow in that area because it was so stressed. Like literally every day, this thing is working to like max capacity.
Yeah.
So blood flow, and then loosening up the fascia and the muscles. And I literally don't care about a study. It made me feel better. And that's a very small particular thing within the context of a particular sport. But if you step back, I think that there's like a ton of helpful applications. Even somebody random that sits at a desk all day that has back pain, come in and see you. And then I guarantee you that would make a pretty big difference.
Yeah. And it's even though, like you said, all of these, treatments stimulate your own body to heal yourself, everyone has to remember the human body does not want to live in pain. Okay? So instead of take a pill, get an injection, get a surgery, stuff too, there's other things that we can try that we can stimulate a body to change and heal itself. Recently, I had it. When has it been? Next month, it will be 2 years ago. I had an accident on my forehead, right? So I had like 25 stitches on my forehead.
What from?
But I fell into an entertainment unit.
Oh no!
Tripping over my dog's bed.
No.
Yeah, it was wild. Yeah. I'll show you pictures. But I have never done any of like the major like medical grade dermatology treatments before. So, right, I had this massive scar. It looked like a shark bit my forehead. And, right, it's your forehead. So I'm like, what? So I got sent to a dermatologist who did his fellowship at NIH in laser treatments for scars. This stuff does not feel good. The micro needling, so using the needles that pulse in, and you bleed and you look red and you look like you got dragged through asphalt and you get scabs all over. So we're using a stimulus to break down bad scarred cells in order to stimulate healthy new cells and have things fix and heal themselves.
Because that's what your body does.
Yeah. Doesn't that sound exactly like what we were doing with needling and cupping and scraping?
100%.
And everyone will do it for their face.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right? But will everyone do it for their chronic elbow pain or for their chronic neck pain? But it just like, I think it's interesting. And, you know, people use lasers too, like for orthopedic things.
Yeah, we would do...
probably on your elbows and shoulders and stuff too.
Where I can't remember if it was at... which school was that I went to, but it was... dang it, I can't remember. But yeah, we would do laser.
There's a new ones even now. My client yesterday, she is an oral surgeon. And so she's like hours like this, right? Like in people's mouth. She just gets chronic shoulder pain, right? I mean, you're in the middle of a big surgery. You can't just drop that tool and shake it out for a second. So now she's doing, it's like this, it's like not a brace, a band that's got like multiple little lasers on it and you can wrap it around.
Oh, wow.
So she wears it even during her surgery. And she's like, it's the only thing, like it's what's saving her in the moment right now. So, you know, we have all these things, like you said, maybe a lot of stuff that is more holistic. It's the same thing of like, we can't prove everything about supplements because it's more subjective too, right? And like because it's not a drug or it's not, you know, a surgery or it's not a something that, you know, it's a lot harder to do all of these cases on it. But like, if it works for you, it's fine.
There's obviously like a line. I think there's a line. You don't want to be like taking some weird Mexican supplement without like due diligence and stuff. And you don't want to be doing like some...
that's the other thing, right? Just like, you know, you said, do your research. Like, you know, am I trained and certified? I've been, you know, I've taken over 100 hours in dry needling courses. And I've been doing dry needling for 12 years, you know, versus an overworked, stressed, you know, 26-year-old athletic trainer, you know, that is just like, well, I guess I have to do this. If you take a supplement off the shelf, look at that supplement. What is in that supplement? Where is that supplement made? Who does third-party testing on this supplement, right? Like, always go for ones that are with Safe Sport if you can, even if you're not an athlete, right? Because it's a higher grade. So, you know, it's with anything else too. That's the other thing is, and we have access to do all of that on our own too. So be a smart consumer at the same time, right? If someone's getting surgery, most people usually spend a lot of time looking up who their surgeon is. Use
that same protocol for
any health choice.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, the information is there. One thing that I just thought about too that I find interesting, I remember being in Watertown, New York, playing summer baseball. And this actually might have been during like one of our video consults.
I was gonna say, I remember when you like lived in like little
middle of
house.
nowhere.
You know, you were on your patio.
Yeah, that was in Watertown. Then that was in New York. And I was saying basically like, this is my workout program. I'm using the sauna before just to warm up. And this was a long time ago, maybe what was that, 7 years ago? And you said use the sauna afterwards. And that was the first time I'd ever heard somebody say that. Now that's like a very commonplace thing. But I mean, because like back in the day, it used to be like cold. Oh, you lift weights, you want to go get in the cold tub or get put ice or whatever. And I remember you telling me to get in the sauna afterwards. And then, I mean, do you know who Rhonda Patrick is? Dr. Rhonda Patrick?
Oh, yeah.
So just like
she loves the sauna.
Yeah. I just remember you saying that, and that was one of those things. The reason I bring that up is because dry needling, cupping, scraping, that sauna advice, the overall like ethos of your practice, it's you're not like afraid to press like past the quote unquote status quo in the medical system or the physical therapy system. It's like these things like you're constantly searching. Okay, well, does this work? Let's find out. You know, it's not just like, let me see what these massive companies with billions and trillions of dollars are trying to tell me as they push me products and different things like that. So I just felt like bringing that up because that was, I vividly remember that. I was like, using the sauna after I work out. And now I do that like every time.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of too, when I started in strength and conditioning, foam rollers and lacrosse balls and things like that, that was called your recovery and regeneration tools. Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't your smash, warm up.
Yeah.
It was to flush your system, recover on your days off, promote regeneration of your tissue, right? It wasn't, whereas like we've sort of been like, oh, I got to get to the gym like 20 minutes early, got to roll out, got to do it. That to me is a sign that you're not recovering appropriately. Either A, your system isn't, or B, you're not doing the right things to recover from your stress, which was your workout or your game or, your training cycle you're in. So recover better, and you shouldn't walk into a gym feeling beat up before you even started.
Yeah.
And I always say this, and this is totally off topic, but whatever, is like, don't leave the gym looking like your last rep, right? Because that's when your nervous system is depleted. That's when your muscles are breaking down. That's when your joints are going to get inflamed, guys. It's just a matter of a fact.
Yeah.
If you play basketball, your knees are going to get inflamed. You know what I mean? So recover appropriately, sleep right, eat the right foods, hydrate. You know what I mean? That's what a good night's sleep is. If you don't do the right things and you go to sleep at night, not have done everything to recover, but holding the stress of the day with you, you're not going to have a good night's sleep, and you're going to wake up in the morning and not feel good and whatnot.
It's almost like lifestyle needling. It's like all this tension, and then just you got to do the things that allow you to rest.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on stem cells?
I'm back in the day, I really try to watch a lot of podcasts and YouTube things from the different researchers and people out there. I would love, I don't know enough about the any of the new science and things that have come on today. I watched did you watch Rogan's podcast with Mel Gibson?
Oh no, I did not.
It's with a physician or a PA, healthcare professional down in Panama, in the country of Panama, who is doing treatments there. I just watched Ben Greenfield just did, I think it's Ben Greenfield. He's like a celebrity fitness guy.
Yeah.
Do you know who he is?
Yeah.
He just did one. He just got head to toe stem cells. Name a body part, and he got stem cells injected in every single vertebra of his spine, in his scalp. I actually have heard for hair growth, it's doing wonders getting it injected in the scalp. But yeah, I heard he went out to Utah and just got it done because I guess they do this on horses, and working horses are able to work for 4 or 5 more years by getting this. So then this doctor started doing it on humans. I mean,
it's not FDA fully approved yet, I don't think.
No, I would love to, and this is a little bit, I guess, where we can sort of talk big picture of everything we've just said. I would love to see really concrete information on it. But this is the one thing I wonder, and this is just me wondering. It's the same thing with dry needling. I know plenty of people that say, it doesn't work. With, scraping, for example, it works freaking wonders. I had a baseball pitcher that thought he had neural damage because his hands were tingling. He was AAA. He came in, it was all adhered fascia, in his pec minor and his scaling muscles. We scraped that and got that petechial response and got that fascia to open up and restored all that blood flow there. No more tingling in his hand, right? But Now, let's say I get a 50-year-old who doesn't have good lean muscle mass, is overweight and has like tingling in their hand too. I might not, I might scrape them and they say it doesn't work, but there's a difference, right? The body composition is different. So
Totally.
there's more subcutaneous and adipose tissue on top of all this healthy tissue. So I can't even get to the muscle and the fascia with a tool. So I might actually cause more of a bruise because there's more adipose, so fat tissue that I'm scraping on.
That makes sense.
Right? That isn't
I never thought about
tight
that.
tissue. So, with more of these like holistical things, is a lot of it I think is going to be patient centered. And I don't know at all, but I wonder if stem cells is going to be like, it's a little bit of that, is that you would have to sort of have a really figure out the right demographic that like maybe it works better for because of people's health, because the activities that they do. I can't see in someone having pain in their hip that the pain is arthritic, they don't work out, high body fat percentage, lean muscle mass, and just by injecting stem cells that's going to change everything, right? Because systemically they're probably full of inflammation. They're not
totally true.
You know what I mean? They're not hydrated. They're not that. So whereas like, right, that's why we're a little bit stuck from like an FDA approved situation, or our westernized world is like the stuff that we can say like, here's the study, NIH granted it, FDA approved it, is that it's very concrete things. Like, yes, I know if I have an arthritic joint, if I remove that joint and put in a fake joint, like that person's going to feel better.
Yeah.
Right? Because now they can walk more. So maybe we can encourage them to lose some weight now because they're moving more and do things because like we fix the structure.
Yeah.
But like,
I think you're right.
How can you fix a system? And a stem cell is going to have to work with the whole system.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
Again, I don't know. That's just my first thoughts.
You're wondering. I've been listening to a couple. I think Rogan's brought it up, and like consequently or like coincidentally, perhaps in like the last 3 podcasts of his that I've listened to. And you're exactly right. All the people that he brought it up about were very like solid, lean muscle mass, like very strong, in shape, holistically healthy individuals. So I think you're right. It would be kind of almost like if big pharma's like the pharmaceutical approach is on this end of the spectrum in terms of like a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, that would almost maybe be on the holistic side of that. Because if somebody's fat, chronically inflamed, horrible lifestyle or unhealthy lifestyle, then
you can't
then stem cells are not going to help that. Yeah. I think there's other things that would
doesn't make sense to me.
It wouldn't be the first domino is what I think is interesting. But it is like
I do know people who swear by they've gotten stem cell injections.
Rogan is one of those guys. He's like, he loves it, which is why it's interesting. I'm like, okay, well, if he loves it and then he tells other people about it and they like it, perhaps it ends up being like the needling and scraping. You're exactly right. It could just be a specific threshold of individual, like relative to their health. Like, are they healthy enough holistically, systematically for it to even make a difference?
Yeah, because I don't think, like, especially if we're talking about pain, if you're someone that, this is an easy example, if you want to even bring up COVID, if you're someone who has hip pain because you don't work out, because it's arthritic, degenerative, because you were a horseback rider your whole life as a kid, right? But you have diabetes, but you have high blood pressure, but you not. I think my system is more concerned about paying attention to all of those things than it is on healing this hip.
Yeah. Totally. You got to do first things first. Like there's holistic
yeah. I mean, that's just sort of like what my thought, sort of is like, as an example, right? Like I'm on no more rheumatoid drugs anymore.
That's gotta feel cool. That's gotta feel good.
Yeah, ever since it's been 10 years now.
Does that feel good that you were on them all this time, and then you've created this lifestyle that has
Oh
put you in a
yeah,
position where you
because
have?
I felt horrible on them. They were great. So that's another thing too is I 100% believe in the drugs that are out there, because if you're, I mean, I was young, I was healthy, I was 14, I was a gymnast, I was a cheerleader, I didn't have a stressful childhood. I loved my life. I had great friends. I was excelled in school. We have no idea what triggered, it doesn't run in my family, of what triggered me to get rheumatoid, as I'm getting ready for the best thing ever to start high school.
Yeah.
So for me, I needed that at that time to calm my system down. And I think puberty probably affected, right? Your hormones are changing so much. They keep changing a ton through high school. And maybe that was one of the reasons why I couldn't just think the disease away. I think it helped way ton that I still could live an active life, and I had a great high school, even though I had it. I mean, I had moments of, I had to stay home from school because of pain and stuff like that. My mom had to button my shirts for me and things, especially, and help me get ready in the morning.
Especially in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I went to I went to Catholic school, so I had to wear Oxford shirts and skirts and tights.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do with really painful hands and wrists.
So I think my mental state that we talked about earlier helped regulate that, but as far as actually getting the inflammation down during that period of my life, I needed those drugs. Except then they told me, even though I went into remission in the middle of college after I got on the drugs, and they told me I had to stay on methotrexate, which is the chemotherapy drug, for the rest of my life, that I had to stay on all these other drugs. And it didn't make sense to me. And I went to PT school. I was fine. I ran marathons. I was fine. But then I hit this point at 30 where I couldn't lift my arm over my head without shooting pain in my elbows. Just lifting my arm overhead, but I had shooting pain in my elbows. And that's when I went back to school, and I did a year-long health coaching certification. And all of the we studied over 100 different dietary theories, and there would always be something that the lecturer would be oh, and this, helped all these autoimmune diseases. So that's when I actually started experimenting with food, and supplements, because I did DNA tests to look at, what am I susceptible to, and what supplements I should take based off of my DNA. One of them is vitamin D. My body just does not convert it from the sun.
Wow.
What does vitamin D help with?
Everything.
But your immune health, right? More than anything. So I that's how I got off the drugs.
Which I think is pretty cool.
I think for me, very high quality, third-party tested fish oil, totally helped. I would take 5 grams of fish oil a day.
You notice a difference for sure?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Sugar. Number one thing, I do not consume sugar.
Really?
Yes.
So that, it's inflammatory?
For me, sugar is actually what created most inflammation in my body and pain in my joints over gluten.
Really?
I did go gluten-free and sugar-free. It was about 9 months. High amounts of fish oil, vitamin D, magnesium, a lot of different things. Those were the main ones at the time. And I haven't taken a pharmaceutical since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
See, the reason I keep saying that's so cool is you have this circumstance, even though it is chronic, it's not going away. You chose to create a life, and you did the work and the research and put in the effort to create a life that allowed you to get away from that side, from the drugs, which I think is so cool, because so many people it's like it's a death note. It's like, oh, you have to take this for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Okay, damn. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
It's like
That
it doesn't
could basically
necessarily
cause
have to
my
be that
liver
way.
to fail.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
And I
have
had to
to
go
be that
get
way.
my blood tested and my liver tested every 3 months.
Yeah, which is no fun.
Yeah. And the thing too is, and it wasn't fun. I'm not going to tell you, like when I was experimenting with all the stuff, like I said, we learned all these different dietary theories. So I tried when I had a journal and I would write down, I would do 3 weeks minimum at a time to try out all these different theories. When I went vegetarian, I had never been so sick in my life.
Really?
My body just does not like that type of plant-based protein. I also didn't grow up on any plant-based protein, so that probably didn't help either. But for me, that didn't work. Maybe for someone else.
See, I can't even physically. I literally can't imagine. Like I don't know if there's ever.
Are you still eating liver?
Yeah, not as much as I was. But I literally can't. I don't know other than fasting. I don't know if there's been a day that I've been alive where I have not eaten an animal protein.
Yeah. And you know what? Like there's going to be other people that it doesn't work for them. I think your background DNA, in my DNA test that I said, it did tell me I needed, and I took that DNA test after I got off my drugs. And it did tell me I needed to take it. It told me to intermittent fast, have a Mediterranean diet, and I needed to take omega-3 fatty acid supplements that had to be fish-based. They could not be the plant-based kind. And I was like, well, that makes a little bit of sense to me.
And that's what you're doing now? Mm-hmm. And you feel good?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And then you want to know what, too? That's the other thing is that at the time I was more cardio focused in exercise. Like I said, I ran marathons, did triathlons. When I, lived in DC and moved here and started all my own businesses, like, just go run or hit the gym, do something mindless. I didn't really follow anything structured from a strength perspective, even though I always did strengthening stuff. And even with these broken hands and broken elbows, I started CrossFit and I just figured out a way to do it.
Yeah.
When I do burpees onto my forearms. So I step down onto my forearms, drop my chest to the ground, push up onto my elbows, and step back up and jump overhead. Because what happens if I fall down on the ground?
Yeah.
I gotta get myself back up.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and honest, from a practical standpoint, you're also you're training a way for you to actually fall down. Like if you were to fall down in real life and you had never trained, and you'd never trained though, now you actually know what it's like to use your elbows and your forearms and stuff like that. So that's there is practical application in that for sure.
Yeah, I can't do pull-ups because it hurts my elbows to get that forced lockout at the bottom. But I'm like, okay, I should be strong enough to do regular pull-ups, but it doesn't feel comfortable. And then my joints swell afterwards. So I'm like, okay, so I do banded pull-ups, but grip strength to hang from a bar, knocking out high reps, but just not with full body weight. You're still getting the right stimulus.
Yeah, absolutely.
That can transfer and to do things. So
I think the number one, we're pushing the 2-hour mark. The number one thing that I've taken is that last little part about you getting off the drugs. I think that is so cool and so powerful because I really
I'm not telling anyone never to try drugs.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, there is utility, I think, but
it's just
if you can
why
convince,
does it have to be forever?
I heard this this quote recently. Gary Brecka said it. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Mm-mm.
He said, from the perspective of a pharmaceutical company, if I can convince you that you have a sickness, I can convince you to take a prescription for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of goes back to the mindset thing that we were talking about earlier. You didn't have this victim mentality, this woe is me, I have this thing, it's going to be with me the rest of my life, such is life, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
You were like, well, we're going to freaking figure out how to make this as absolutely minuscule of an effect on my life as I possibly can. And you were able to get off those drugs that you said, like you said, they were gonna make your liver fail at some point, or could have. I just think that's so cool and so powerful, because I really do believe that people, like for me, I took ADHD medicine for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was told, oh, like you're gonna have to take this. You have ADHD. You're gonna have to take this literal amphetamine for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I woke up, I was like, why? Like,
yeah,
why? There's got to be other things that I can do that can help. So I want to commend you for that. I really think that's powerful.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And I think it's, it should be a conversation of, when you go for these follow-ups, when you're on these drugs, right? Like if you're on blood pressure medicine, like it's a chronic drug, they want you to be on it forever. But like, so once we get your blood pressure in order, like, are we talking about food? Are we talking about exercise? Are we talking about managing cortisol levels? And it's right. It's the whole thing of, do we have sick care? Or do we have health care?
Yeah.
And, like, as we said, the like decentralizing medicine to give people more autonomy over their care and what they're looking for, and specialists that work within what their goals are and what they want. I think that's just going to continuously, it's going to keep separating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's going to keep separating. And a lot of the things is technology and innovation that actually a lot of these companies also have helped create.
Yeah.
It's now in our hands that we're making bigger decisions for ourselves too.
It's that decentralization, which is cool.
Yeah.
Which I think, like I said before, that's what excites me, is practices like your own, practices like Ways to Well in Austin. That's where Joe Rogan goes. Like all over the country, there's different places. But it's just the decentralization of the healthcare system, I think, is the way that we're going to become a healthier society. Mm-hmm. And people like yourself and your team and everyone like y'all are like the ones actually doing it. So I want to thank you for that. I really do. I want to thank you for helping me be able to play sports at a high level and helping me in that journey. And also for taking the time today. It's really been a joy. Yeah,
of course, you're welcome. And for everyone who doesn't know, I mean, but you've been this curious about the human body. Like I said, when I met you, you were looking for a PT. You had your yoga instructor. Yeah. I think you had a nutritionist at the time. And I mean, I've never met your parents.
Yeah, I know.
And like how long that we've worked together and helped you through video conferences, whether it was in New York or in Virginia. You coming in, during high school is you've also created a lot of these, you've been empowered to create these opportunities for yourself too. So I commend you for that a ton. And, what you're doing on this podcast and talking and who you invite on is really, it's really because you're that interested and you live and learn, through all of these people, which you've been doing ever since you were a teenager. So that's really freaking cool to see you. Yeah.
I remember.
I'm not shocked that we're sitting here having this conversation, even, from when I first met you in high school.
I feel like we probably, it's funny you say that, because I feel like we probably had several podcasts worth of conversation. Because I think about sometimes from your perspective, you probably get some people in here who don't talk at all, which is whatever. And you probably get some people that talk a ton, probably closer to me. But as somebody, you get a new client, there's this rapport building thing that happens. And I remember us talking for the entirety of our session. I'd always be like, what is this? What is that? What is this? What does that do? What is this? So I appreciate you saying that. I think that that's definitely part of the inherent reason that I decided to start a podcast or felt called to do so in the first place. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
All right. It's been good.
And with that, I hope y'all enjoyed the conversation with Lauren. That was a great couple hours. We learned a lot. We got into a little bit of a nitty-gritty rabbit hole with some of the physical therapy stuff, which I really enjoyed. I learned a lot from this conversation. I hope y'all did as well. Make sure to follow Lauren on Instagram and check out Repair, Perform, Recover. If you're in the Atlanta area, those will be linked in the show notes below. I hope you all found this valuable, and until next time, stand firm.